Hi, my name is Bill Schaeffer, and I have another idea for a VFX production. Today, a short talk on how to clone paint without mashing up the grain. Now, if you're familiar with the 2D software packages, you probably started digitally painting in Photoshop. And there you take and you clone from one part of the picture to another part of the picture using the brushes they give you. And it's fairly easy to digitally retouch a photograph. It's fairly easy to paint something out, to fix the photograph, and it still looks convincingly real. Now, if you take those same skills into a moving picture or video environment, say you're using Nuke to paint out a wire, and you use the same techniques that you use in Photoshop. And you clone paint a single frame and it looks fine. And you finish the shot, and to your horror, you realize there's this ghosting image where the wire was, where somehow you're seeing some artifact, like some predator type of artifact in the image. Well, here's what's happening. That soft edge diffusion on the edge of the brush is mashing up the grain as you clone over. Now, the way to solve that problem is to always use a brush that's 100% opacity with an absolutely hard edge. When you clone paint in video to remove an object, use a hard edge brush at 100% opacity. That way, when you're cloning, you will see any artifacts on the edge of the brush. So if you make a clone paint with a hard edge brush and it disappears, that paint stroke will work. If you paint your whole shot that way, clone painting with a hard edge brush at 100% opacity, and it looks good on every individual frame, then when you play it, there will be no ghosting of images. Now, what some people like to do is they will just go ahead and paint with a soft edge and save all the brush strokes. Then they will use those brush strokes as an alpha matte to overlay grain on top of the background image. There are a couple of problems with this methodology. First off, you'll never perfectly match the grain. You'll never perfectly match the grain to the background. And secondly, when you're adding grain to partial grain, you're going to have slight grain artifacts. Now, you can make it a lot better and get rid of that mushy grain using this technique and make it acceptable. But it will never be quite as good as if you paint to begin with a hard edge brush at 100% opacity. Therefore, if you're used to using Photoshop to do photo retouching, you probably are using a soft edge brush. If you are trying to do wire or rig removal, doing clone painting in a software package with a soft edge brush, most likely you will see artifacts. The best way to get rid of those artifacts is to always use a hard edge brush. It's more difficult, it's a lot more difficult, but when you get a good paint clone with a hard edge brush, it's good forever. Another method is save your paint strokes and add grain on top of the grain. That is not quite as good. In any event, this is Bill Schaeffer with an idea on how to do clone painting and preserve the grain without getting any softening of the grain or artifacts in your wire removal or rig removal. Thank you, and leave your comments below.